Well, I was happy to finally fix my air conditioning issues in the house. But I got one major project I want to take on. It's still hot, even though it's the beginning of November. But I'm just going to have to do it, hot weather or not. And that's this engine. As you know, this is my old truck, and it became too unreliable to drive about this time last year in November. I had gone to Winn-Dixie, bought some meat on sale, which I haven't gotten a price that cheap since. Thanks, inflation. And my truck, it wouldn't start. I even waited till later to try to start it when it cooled off, wouldn't run. And it just became so unreliable, and I said, forget it. I was already getting this running, and that's what I've been using ever since. What I'm going to do, since I don't like to get rid of anything, and I kind of like my old truck. Yeah, it's old, it's rusty, kind of beat up, but it's not that beat up. And I think the rust holes are easily repaired. Bit of welding, bit of cleaning, repaint it, not so bad. And I did put a lot of time into the transmission. I had to remove it twice. The first time I actually took it out, and then a friend of mine gave me his transmission, and it worked for less than a year before it broke. And I ended up just taking all the parts I had and building it myself. After that, it worked fine. But the engine has always been an issue. Now, I did a video a while back, although I had trouble uploading it, where I actually took the compression of this engine, and it was extremely low in some of the cylinders. I don't know exactly what is wrong with this engine. What I do know is it has a lot of blow-by when it runs. Oh, look at the neighbor's cat. Hey, kitty. It's a big one. Come here. You friendly, kitty? Nope. And what it is, the transmission, although it was working, the engine was having difficulty starting, and I did test the compression. It was low. Now, I've had this injection pump out several times. I've had to rebuild it because I used used vegetable oil that I centrifuge as a fuel. Now, I haven't been able to pick up really any oil, and again, I haven't even pursued it. A lot of the restaurants and food trucks I used to get it from don't exist anymore. They've gone out of business due to the bad economy. And I decided, well, I'm not really using it that much. My strategy has been to use the van for work, and then for the short trips, I've been using the bicycles. You can see my bicycle's over there. It got a flat tire, again, because the sidewalks here are just so well cared for. Bunch of holes, cracks, debris, nails, glass, needles, all kinds of stuff. But I'm thinking about making a video series on what is wrong with my truck. And again, this is a 1990, so it's using 1980s technology. This engine is non-computerized, and it has no emission control whatsoever. The transmission is computerized, so it does use that. But these trucks, if they had a manual transmission, would be completely computer-free if they were a diesel. All the gas engines by this era already had fuel injection and therefore used a computer. This is basically stock with a few slight modifications. There is this extra filter that I use for the vegetable oil. There's also a heat exchanger that I put in here to heat up the vegetable oil that's under the truck. And also, you'll notice that the fuel line, the way I ran it, it runs over the exhaust manifold, so that when the vegetable oil is preheated, it's reheated again here before it goes into the filter system. Now, this filter system, again, is sort of custom made from a bunch of parts I had laying around. And the way that it works comes from the tank. In this case, it's got diesel in it because that's what I was running towards the end, because I knew I was going to basically store this truck. I had issues with it. I thought I could fix it without a rebuild. So I did that, and you probably saw my old videos where I cleaned the fuel tanks, got the system in good shape. And I have started the truck about once a month. I've kept it on the battery charger, so that way the batteries didn't go dead, so they still work. So we're getting a lot of this windy weather. We have a little bit of rain. There's a storm forming somewhere in the Gulf. It's probably going to be a hurricane. It won't hit us. That time is already over. But it's out there, and it may be a little windy and rainy. So we're going to let this sit for a little bit, but I'm just making plans. Now when it comes time, I've been getting rid of a lot of garbage around the yard, scrapping a lot of scrap that was laying around. And I've said, well, when I get a little free time, and of course now I have free time because I haven't had any work. My last job was last week. I did 1 day of electrical work and that was it. I haven't had anyone call me since. So again, with the economy, with all the stuff that's going on, I think things are starting to stall. Now, after today, maybe things will change. I don't know. But the reality is, old technology, we're going to take this apart. What I want to do, now that I have little Bob on the ground and ready at any time, I'm going to, when the time is right, do the disassembly. And again, we'll strip all of these parts out of here, take the radiator out, remove as much as is necessary. This engine is quite heavy, but we'll go ahead and there'll be plenty of room. We'll disconnect the transmission and then just pull this out of here. Now, in the meantime, I need to locate my heavy-duty engine stand, which is probably somewhere in this messy garage that I've been cleaning out. Or I might just have to modify the other one I have or even build a new one because this is a very heavy engine. This 7.3 diesel is probably the heaviest of all the engines that I've ever dealt with. Bob can pick it up with no problem. But we're going to take this out of here. And again, I've kept it up pretty well. I've kept it clean. You don't see any grease. I tend to be very good about cleaning my mechanical items. There may be a couple of issues with the wiring harness because the tachometer did sort of bounce around. But this is my chance to do it. So while I do that, I'll probably go ahead and clean out and paint the engine compartment with some white paint. And I'll probably remove all the accessories, see what I can do. And definitely when the time comes to take it out, we'll remove the air conditioning, power steering, all this other external stuff down to the engine. And then I'll, of course, remove the injectors and clean them, do all that work. Now the glow plug wiring harness is no good. It's been in bad shape. I haven't been able to find a replacement. So I'm going to try to find those bayonet style connectors. I may have to make my own. I haven't used them for a long time because they don't really do anything because the engine's been so worn out. But I'll go ahead and probably change them, get them working. There's a little glow plug timer back there that burned up. I do have a replacement that I got from a friend of mine. So there's a lot here that I can do. And again, a lot of these parts have been replaced, radiator and water pump and all that stuff. So, but yep, this is my next project. It may not be this week or the week after. I want to wait until these hurricanes or other storms are gone. I was hoping when we get our first cold front, but it's already the beginning of November and we really haven't had one. It's still in the 80s, which means, well, I don't know when it's going to cool off, but if it ever does, this will be a project and I'll share it with you, all the things that I discover when I take apart this engine. You have to remember when I bought this truck, it was back in 2008, it was already 18 years old, and it had issues back then. Compression was okay, but it wasn't great. It did run, but when you started it, it would kind of like, you could hear it. It wasn't even. Compression wasn't up to specs. Somebody had a radiator from a gas engine. They had a PVC pipe. I mean, I did repair this to make it look better. There was no fan shroud. So you could be sure it was overheating and it had a lot of issues. So it is possible that maybe the valves are bad or I don't know. There's a lot of mystery as to why this engine is so bad. It doesn't really knock, but it does make a funny noise now and then. So we'll see, And it's been running on vegetable oil since about 2009. So we can see the effects that that's had on it. So I think this is going to be a pretty interesting video. Now, I've had people ask me, why don't you just junk this thing? It's old. The reason I'm not going to junk it is because, as you can see, it's not that rusty. There's still hope for this old truck. The station wagon was completely rusted, including the frame. This one is good. I mean, it's really not a bad truck. And even though it's not a real antique, I mean, it is from 1990, so it's a classic. It's not one of those dent side trucks from the 70s that everybody likes. But, I still think it's better than a new one. I have several friends that have new trucks, and I really hate them. Plus, I did put new lights in this thing a few years back. And, I mean, it's not bad. Yeah, it's Ford. I'm a Mopar man, but, it's not bad. And the best thing about it is, unlike the new trucks, at least, even though this is plastic, it has some kind of chrome. This is metal here. So it's not a really cheap truck. I don't know how safe it is in an accident, but I haven't had an accident with it yet, other than being hit a couple times in the rear. So that's my plan, and hopefully soon we'll add this to the series of videos. And again, see, there's no rust holes even in the hood. It's bent a little bit where the hood popped up. That's going to need some body work. But I think, and you know, that, and there was also an antenna that was on the roof. I just put a piece of roofing paper to keep the water out. I put some of that, you know, 5200 or whatever caulking, but it's really not that bad of a shape. There's rust over here at the bottom of the cab, but that's easily cut out. Rust on the door, again, cut out. And what I'll probably do is use lead to seal it, because I'm old-fashioned like that. I'm not going to use Bondo. I'll just use lead, because that's a material that won't go bad that easily. So anyway, that's a future project, and I just wanted to share it with you.